All right, well, welcome everyone to episode 12 of Heart for Excellence show. Today we have a very special guest, Dane. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to turn over to Trevor because Trevor has the pleasure of knowing Dane for much longer amount of time than I do. We just had a lunch at Chick-fil-A that one time. So Trevor, why don't you introduce our guest?
Yeah,
and we'll go
absolutely.
from there.
Thanks, Merrick. Yeah, today we're sitting down with Dane Hall, part of Marriage Revolution, and getting his story from earlier years and picking it up really at a broken point in his life and hearing how he's transitioned from that brokenness into a more of a healthy, wholesome heart that enables him to love other people well and to have a heart for excellence.
Yeah.
So Dane, I know we've known each other for about 2 years. We met during Blended and Blessed.
Right.
I was learning, I had just gotten married or was about to get married. And Rita and I were looking, well, how do we blend two families?
Right.
And as a result of that, I got to know you and your wife, Paola, and we talked a little bit. And since then, our relationship has grown.
Right.
And we've been discovering more similarities in our lives. So I was wondering if you could tell our listeners some of the brokenness of your heart, what that looked like, and how it manifested itself in your first marriage, and how you've been growing through that since to now be in a blossoming marriage and a faith-filled marriage with your wife now.
Yeah. So how much time do we have?
We get to condense it in about 20 minutes.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys.
Pleasure.
Really appreciate this. To be able to just share my heart. And my heart is starting out. My heart is to help people. Fast forward a little bit to today. I share with my clients and the people I care for that it's very refreshing to finally get to a place where I know why I was created and I'm doing it. So it's very settling in my life, and that's a big plays a big role in my life, and giving me the peace to help other people and impart the peace that I've gone through that. So going back, let's see, where do I start? So I got married very young. I met my wife my ex-wife in high school, and I was pretty big, I'd say famous soccer player in high school. We won a lot. I was the captain of the team, so I was on the newspaper, etc. So right when I graduated high school, I went to college on a scholarship, soccer scholarship, and unplanned pregnancy came, right? And so do the right thing is what my thought was. I did know God. I grew up in church, in a Catholic church. Went to church on a Sunday. However, it was not necessarily my life. It was something that we did. Right, we just went to church.
More tradition.
Right, more tradition.
Went through the motions.
And you just like waking up. And I grew up in the Caribbean, so when you talk about going to church back then, the shoes is a little tighter. You have to dress up. The shirt is really tight. You have a jacket, and you really dislike going to church because of the experience of waking up early in the morning and uncomfortable through the entire service. Your belt is tight, whatever you're growing, things like that. So anyway, I got child is coming on the way, so we're like, okay, we need to get married. So get married to do the right thing. What we were even in college, I remained faithful to her, and then when she was done with high school, she came and we got married. And so the impression or things that I've learned from my parents and from other people and even entertainment and so on, I've built this idea of what marriage was supposed to be about. It had nowhere God in anywhere, right? It's just about perceived benefits.
Yeah.
And then, of course, my benefits weren't being realized. I wasn't getting the things that I thought I was going to get. And, I was driven. I was playing soccer. I was striving to be a professional soccer player once I was done with college. So that's where I wanted to go live in Europe. That was my dream. Live in a loft and go to practice every day, right? Eat food and just practice and work out. And then, but she was more, more laid back, more, let's just see what happens. So there was a lot of button heads with that, where I wanted to go and she wanted to just wait. And then so what I thought the perceived benefits were, she was loyal and she has been loyal. She's never, to my knowledge, done anything for me to even not trust her. But we weren't connecting. And so my whole view of it was, I need to get something in my life that would help me to connect. So what I found my refuge in was at work. So I was very reserved, but then a lot of people were around me. And as I got promoted and grew in the ranks, I was more exposed to a lot more people. Like I was managing a group. I was managing up to 100 people at one point. So there's a lot of people to talk to, right? And so I met a coworker, and we were working together, and so we would develop this friendship. This was female, and so we talked, and she was having a hard time at home with her husband. I was having a hard time at home with my wife, and so we found refuge in each other, and we built this really strong friendship where we were just opening up to one another. Probably sharing things we shouldn't share eventually. Interestingly, I never thought of this person, my coworker, as someone that I would be interested in sexually or interested in as a mate. That never crossed my mind. I just opened up my heart to her, and then she opened her heart to me. And so there was a time when it got really tough, and my wife back then, my ex-wife, decided that she needed to go back home because she missed her family. She was very close to their family. And so she said she was going to take my daughter. And there's some really tough decisions that were made. And I reluctantly agreed for her to go. But then when she was there with my daughter, she was not making an effort to come back. So what I saw in my head, in my mind, right? And so I would say, what are you doing? When are you coming back? How are you, let's go, let's think about it, let's do it. And she's like, I'm not sure. I'm just trying to figure things out. And, and so my impatience, and again, we're butting heads with, I just want to do it and go, and I'm ambitious. And she was kind of like, let's wait and see.
So let me interrupt just a little bit here to explore a little bit. So what's going on in your heart at this point? Because we all go to the altar, and I've said this many times before, with, I will die for this woman. As men, like, this is what we're supposed to do. Like, the man always, lays down for the woman. Like, we give up our lives to save the princess. And yet, through years, a year, 2, 3, 4 years, however long, we end up becoming adversarial. And the woman that we say we're going to die for and live for, well, she becomes inconvenient, or she becomes
an obstacle.
So what's going on in your heart at this time that you said, well, hold on, I guess I'll just marry her, but she's not doing what I want. She's not fitting into my plans. What's going on in your heart at this point?
So what I'm thinking about, first of all, I didn't have a plan to die to myself. I mean, there was nothing. That's one of the big gaps that was there. Like, I didn't have that concept, even that remote idea of, I am supposed to be sacrificing myself. It was about, me doing what I needed to do, what I thought was right, what I always dreamed about ever since I was like 10 years old, playing soccer. And I was always out of the house, practicing, playing. And I was just all about satisfying my own needs, right? And so...
And then your wife was just part of those.
And she was just like an addition. She was like an add-on, like an app. Like
she was there as one of your things to complete your life, and it was about your life. So in your heart... It was like, we talk about it quite often. I know that I wrestled with selfishness, or I needed my wife to affirm me, to do things to make me feel better. Is that similar to your story, or is that different?
Absolutely. So it was just about what I needed, what I wanted, and then also, my mistakes, and I even carried it into my second marriage, was trying to teach her and talk at her versus living it, right? So a lot of times when we, as husbands, we understand something, and what we do is we try to impart that some way. Well, not, I don't want to say impart, but we talk at the person versus living it. Like, that person may not be there yet. They may not have that revelation about you're supposed to be dying to yourself. But when you try to make somebody do that, then that becomes an issue, because now you're just making it about you.
Yeah.
So that's what I was doing. I was like talking, hey, this is how life is supposed to work. This is how life is supposed to work. This is
Because
what
we
we're
as men, we
supposed
fix everything.
Yeah,
We know
try to
better.
fix it. Right.
And here's a solution, and we have the answers.
Right.
And if you will just listen to
If
me,
you would just sacrifice for me, and I don't sacrifice for you, it'll be perfect.
it'll be perfect. And I think all three of us, Dane,
right.
like, you'll hear Merrick's stories sometime, but he's been divorced, I've been divorced, you were divorced.
Yeah.
Golly, we've got to impact the hearts of men to get beyond this of listening to our wives with our hearts, and not being so selfish. But keep going. Yeah. Tell us more.
So this is my thinking. Professional soccer player. I had my degree at that point, so I did what my parents wanted me to do. So I graduated college.
Okay.
Right. Because that was something that's pounded in my
Check.
head.
Check.
In my head. And I was still going to church. I was still going to church every so often. I went to Catholic church. I
Check.
found one that was close
Yeah.
to my apartment. And even in college, I was still going. But it never took root. It never sank into my head. It never
Got into your
became, it never became something that my life was about. It was just, again, another app that I added to my life. You know, I was like, check, church, right? So I'm there and I'm going about it, and I'm not seeing the results that I thought I'd be getting. So then my coworker, I'm thinking in my head, okay, so I'm not getting this at home.
Yeah.
I'm not getting what I'm getting at work in 30 minutes to 45 minutes to an hour of conversation. And this person was very interested in me. Like, she is pursuing me.
Yeah.
Right? Because she was wanting to know how I felt. She was wanting to get some ideas. And then we had, the friend of my friend is my enemy type thing.
Yeah.
So we were like coming together, and then we had common enemies at home. Right? So now we're kind of like on an island, and we're putting ourselves on an island. We're like, we're like bonding. And then, excuse me, then the opportunity presented itself. My wife is away. This coworker felt very bad for me that I was by myself, right? Came over and just started bringing food, just sitting on the couch, talking about football, talking about our lives. Just like a buddy. And then before you know it, conversation starts happening that went a little bit deeper. Now we're isolated, behind closed doors, and one thing led to another.
Absolutely.
So at this point, when that happened, I decided not to hide it, because I always heard in my upbringing was I was a good boy. Good.
Yeah.
Because I was the model son.
Yeah.
My mom, my dad, people would tell me, like, you're good, and so that kind of played a big role in my head. And so I picked up the phone the next day, and I made the phone call, and I told my wife back then that this had happened. And of course, it's like dropping the hammer, which was the worst way to do it, right? But I did it even out of frustration, sharing it. It wasn't even necessarily just remorse. It was frustration, because
look what you made me do.
Exactly, look what you made me do, type of thing, right?
Isn't that what they did? Like Adam, right? He says, God,
It wasn't me.
this woman you gave me this.
Right. Yeah.
And I just want to take a little quick break here, but I want to say thank you. You prefaced all of this by saying your wife at that time did nothing to cause you to think that she was not being unfaithful. Right. I want to just thank you for that vulnerability and that honesty. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that was actually one of the reasons why I married her, because deep down inside I knew she was loyal.
Wow.
And loyalty was very, very important to me.
Yeah.
Right. But even in the same breath, after it happened, like the conversation I was having in my head, I was like, I can't believe I did that. Like,
you became
where
the
did that
person
come from?
that you didn't want to be.
Yeah.
You married your wife for her loyalty,
Yeah.
and yet in your heart, you were being confronted with your own selfishness and your own
Right.
disloyalty
Right.
that you had projected onto her, maybe even.
Right.
Okay.
Right. The other thing too, I remember that I was very insulated, where I didn't have a lot of people that were speaking to my life. I read books. I had teachers. I used to do martial arts, and so there's all this philosophy mixed with my upbringing in church that I mixed it in, and it's all about just being the best person you can.
Yeah.
Right. And so when that happened, I was like I was very disappointed in myself.
Yeah.
And then so there's mixed feelings about whether I should go back to my wife or not.
Mm.
And this is also a big error on my part, where I thought all along, if that had happened to me, I would not forgive her. Right? So
The double standard.
she cannot forgive me. The other thing too is, like, I'm thinking there's no way back from this, because I have these feelings for this other person, right? And it's so good. And for me, it was connection necessarily. It wasn't just about having sex. It was the connection that had happened.
Yeah.
And so I was very drawn to this person. I mean, she was bubbly, alive, motivated, ambitious, all this type of things that's just very similar to me, right? And so I went back and forth battling whether I should say I'm going to go back or not. And I did give her false hope at some point, my ex-wife, and saying, what, let's try to work on this.
Wow.
The more I thought about it, and the more I just felt, man, there's no coming back from this. Like, there's no way we can recover from this. There's no way that, like, how can I even forget? Like, how can I forget what happened?
Yeah.
But that was my conversation, right?
It's really you living with yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
It was
And
me.
your reality and the
exactly.
truth that you're having troubles reconciling to justify
Right.
a mixed up situation.
Exactly. So, eventually, after about a year, we decided, I decided, no, I'm not going back to my ex-wife. So I'm going to pursue a relationship with my coworker. And so my coworker was married
That's a problem.
at the time, right?
Ooh.
So she wanted out of her marriage as well, and that gave her an out.
Yeah.
Now, because of the religious background that she had, that was actually an out, like out of the religion as well.
Wow.
So if you did this, it was like kind of unforgivable. And the other things was like they had a council, all these sorts of things, and then so they basically said, you're dead now. You're no longer. Now we can try to help you to come back, but you got to get out.
Yeah.
Right. And because you're not remorseful about what you did, right? So she's out. I'm in the situation where my family's looking at me and going, how can you do this?
I apologize. I didn't turn off my devices before this.
That's fine.
Keep going. It's a nice ringtone, by the way. It gets you in a dancing mood. All right, Trevor's back.
Yeah. So I'm here and she's here, and we're again on an island.
Yeah.
Like, nobody wants her. A lot of people are disappointed in me. So we're like, okay, well, let's figure this out. She's broken, I'm broken. There's no commitment necessarily on either side because we're not married. And so she's kind of pursuing me, I'm pursuing her. Got to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm all the way in. And so then we ended up having a child together.
Oh wow.
And then once my divorce, I started filing for divorce, actually annulment, like it never actually happened. Once that went through, we got married.
So, because of time, we're going to do a part 2 with you, Dane.
Yeah.
For our listeners. Wow. Like, this is a testimony of many men, whether played out or not. And what I mean by that is, so often we're looking for our wives to build us up, to bring meaning into our lives. And if they don't bring meaning into our lives, there'll always be another apple,
Yeah.
another woman
The grass is green on the other side.
that will come and give us attention.
Mm-hmm.
And still in our brokenness, we didn't get it from our wife. The woman that we are now getting the attention from is giving to us what we want.
Mm-hmm.
And now we've caused this woman to break up with her husband,
Right.
and the mess and the cycle continues.
Right.
And I think as we pursue a heart for excellence, it's looking into a man's heart. What are the broken things in us that cause us to break other things?
Right.
Yeah.
And so in our next episode, we'll be talking with Dane on the journey through this and out of this.
Right.
And it comes down to us finding healing in our own hearts and realizing as men, we're supposed to be there for our wives, giving to them what so often we are looking for from them.
Yeah.
Basically, the affirmation, building them up, encouraging them, and laying down our lives for them,
Yeah.
to love them well. But we'll be continuing this conversation, Dane. So we're going to look forward to the following episode of how you got through this.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
It's better.
Thank you, Dane.
Yeah.
Well, take care, guys, and talk to you soon.